Hi everybody, my name is Heremaia and welcome to the Meetup Masters Lecture series. In this series, we're going to be showing you how to build your first in-person community, starting with lesson 1 of how to cold start an in-person community from scratch. In this lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about my story of building the Joensuu Speakers Club, one of the largest in-person public speaking communities in Finland, building it from scratch. So even with knowing no one, being new to a city and having no language skills, or opportunities being fresh to a city. We'll talk a little bit about how that relates to building out a cold community and lessons learned for the first lesson of this lecture series. All right, so the cold start reality. Most guides when building a community already assume you have something in the hand. Now that may be a social media following or an audience, existing network of people that you know, a city that you've been around for a very long time, a language that you speak. And this lesson is for people who do not have these things. So in 2025, when I moved to Joensuu in eastern Finland, a city of 79,000 people, I didn't know anyone. I didn't speak Finnish, which was harder, and I had zero opportunities. But I decided that I wanted to start a public speaking club just because I'd done one before in the past. There wasn't a club here, and it seemed like a perfect opportunity. Within the first month, I had started to build the public speaking club. As of last week, 12 months later, we've hosted over 35 events, built a pretty core team of people, and welcomed more than 500 people through our doors. It didn't require a massive investment or a big social media following. It just required a very clear method. And in this course, we're going to cover that full method. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what most people get wrong, which I call the lone founder effect. So the lone founder effect is when a person wants to start a community in a new city, all for the first time, and they try to build their own thing. Now, they design a logo, maybe build a Facebook page, mock something up on Canva, and then they start spamming it around town. They post it on Facebook groups, maybe put some posters up, and they wait for people to show up. And nobody comes. That's the truth. Maybe 1 or 2 people come, they get discouraged, and then they quit. That mistake is because they skipped the critical first step, which is if you want to build a great community, start by being a great community member. And look, to tell you a little bit of a story, when I first moved to Joensuu, I attended everything that I could. I remember I arrived on a Saturday. First thing I did was go to church on a Sunday, met a few people there, made some friends, got invited to a board game night on Tuesdays. On the Tuesday, I went down to the city hall. I told them I was new to the city, and I said, give me every single thing that I should attend, register for, go to, and be a part of. And I remember they gave me a stack of papers like this tall. And within the first 2 weeks of living in the city, I was on a first-name basis with some of the city officials because I had just kept visiting the events. I think I went to 18 events from the city, across the city in the first month here, from board game nights to jobs help clinics to registrations. And the whole point was that I had effectively started just to go to as many different communities in the space as possible. I think a really good thing you can do, just go find 10 different communities here and see, and then out of those, choose 5 that you like and just go attend. The entire point of this is that you need to know what the other communities look like. You learn which communities exist in your current ecosystem, and you know what's already there. For the most part, you might already have the running club, the chess club, the public speaking club, the yoga, the spirituality, whatever kind of meetup you want to do, it might already be there. And then you can just go team up with other people. But at the same time, you meet the people that already show up to local events. And these are probably going to be your future members here. You become a known face. By the time I was on that kind of first name basis with the city and they knew me, it was good. It was nice. People know you. And then they see you around town. And then you build goodwill with kind of community organizers. For the most part, now when I run my events, so many of my events community members that come through are seeded through other communities. So like our members now pollinate with other members within the ecosystems here. So we all attend each other's events. And you finally get to identify what's missing within the ecosystem of communities. You have to understand that when you look at community in and of itself, I'll talk about the concept of pillars and statues another day, but you're effectively building a pillar within an ecosystem here. You are not building a community standalone in an isolated environment. You are building a community within an already existing ecosystem, and you have to understand how that ecosystem functions. And in order to do that, you need to go out and meet other people and go to their events. So start by being a good community member, contributing, going to as many other events as you can, meeting people, meeting organizers, And that's a great way to build your network, to start getting ready to start your community. As you can see down there, I attended everybody else's events first, got to know the organizers, made genuine efforts, and then I got the idea to say, hey, let's kick something off. So let's talk about the 5 pillars of cold starting here. The number one is obviously going to be your reason. So you need a reason to start the community that's strong enough to carry you through the goods and the bads. For the most part, when you run a community, especially an in-person one, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be easier times, and there's going to be harder times. Launching is exciting. Keeping it running for a long time, that gets a little more difficult. Now, my reason was incredibly specific. I'd lived in a town previously to this one here, and I didn't have very much of a good time. I didn't speak the language. I got laid off from work, and I was just fairly isolated. I didn't build a community. I chose not to integrate, chose not to learn the language, chose not to do a whole bunch of things which are really important when you want to build a community, and I ended up very unhappy. And so I took some time for myself, and when we finally moved to the new town, I said, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to build a community, and I'm going to start by doing the right things. And so for me, public speaking was effectively just the vehicle in and of itself. I could have built any kind of community. I happen to be a fairly decent organizer in public speaking, as I've done it before in the past. So I decided, let's do that. This is my reason for building this, is that I want to build a community and I want to integrate into this country a bit better. Write it down. You're going to come back to it a lot, to be honest. If you don't have a really good reason to do it there. Making money can be a good reason, but you really need to kind of get to the bottom of why you want to make the money at the same time. So really take some time. There's probably some other workshops on YouTube that'll help you with that there. But find your why. Find the reason why you want to do it. Would you do this even if you didn't get paid? Because for us, I did. It's like I still show up to it there. I love it. I have a great time. So it's a wonderful opportunity. So before you start telling a single person about your idea, make something that they can look at. A flyer, poster, WhatsApp group name, something real. To give you a bit of a backstory, when we started the Joensuu Speakers Club, I built something little in Canva. I can actually show you it here. It's incomplete. I built this in Canva, and I went down to the board game night at my church, and I told my friends, hey, I've got an idea for something. And they're like, okay, great. What is it? And I showed them, I flipped my laptop around because I hadn't printed it, and I showed them this poster, and I said, oh, I want to start a public speaking club. And they're like, okay, tell us a little bit about it. And so I pitched them the concept and the idea. But the whole point was that like having something tangible that they can see really solidifies it a little bit more in reality. People will take you a bit more seriously. And so for the most part, what I did was I just took this completed flyer here. And once I had built the network and I started talking to people about the idea, this was effectively what I led with. I have another version which is rendered and actually works here. This one's just a little bit backdated. But the whole point was that having something where you can actively advertise to it there is a great way to get started with that. Having a WhatsApp group, just adding people to a WhatsApp group in and of itself, great way to do that there. Where, at least in Europe, WhatsApp's quite common. In the States, I'm not too sure what else may be common here. Group chat, Facebook group, something else. But have a place, grab their email, grab some contact details. When you start talking to people, you're going to be wanting to get some kind of contact details from them so you can ping them when the first event is going to be running in and of itself. Could be a Google form. Google forms are okay. But when you have something to show, you stop talking about it just being an idea and it starts to be a little bit more real. You don't need a website. You just need something that people can look at on your phone right now. You can print out a few if you want, but for the most part, you don't really need to. So this is the fun part, pillar number 3, getting into the room. So after you've built your kind of tangible thing, your only job at this point is to get into rooms and talk to people. And not to promote, just to connect. For the most part, the formula is you go to other people's events. So be genuinely present and find what we call the other pillars. So when we think about community as a whole, I want you to think about it like your kind of Roman Colosseum. You have pillars, and pillars are effectively the things that keep the building upright there. And when it comes to every single person's kind of perception of what their community is, everyone's look different. For example, you may have work on a Monday to Friday, that's a pillar. You may play volleyball with your friends on a Wednesday night, that's a pillar. You may go to a running club on a Saturday, that's a pillar. You may go to a church on a Sunday, that's a pillar. And the entire point is that everyone has their own little kind of Roman Colosseum building with all their different pillars. What you need to do is make sure that you have your own pillars. Have pillars where other people attend, other people go, you like to go to here, and talk to people there. Because you know that they already go to events and they're already outside and getting out there and visiting things locally. So For the most part, church, board game nights, running clubs, volleyball, university events, employment festivals, whatever exists in your city, go out to it. Out of 10 events, you'll find maybe 3 or 4 recurring ones that you like. And these are going to be your pillars. And these are the rooms where your future members effectively already are. One thing that worked really actually for us is we conference crashed, and in which there was an employment festival coming up. We knew it was going to be there. I had people that were running it and knew it, and we just snuck a booth in. We ran in there with a banner, chucked it up. Here's a video of me actually advertising for it, so you can see us here. And so functionally, this was great because we went to this employment festival. We put up a banner and sat by a table, put a list down here, and we had 80 people sign up on a single conference. Just 80 people came in and filled out the list. And what's even worse is that we didn't even use that list properly. I didn't know how to use the emailing software, so we just had a list of 80 people. And I was like, I don't know how to. The handwriting was so bad that the AI couldn't track it, and I had to try to do things manually, and I couldn't figure it out, and I left it in a pile, and I didn't really use it that much. But what it did do was it did validate the fact that a whole bunch of people want to try public speaking in this town. And so for me, that was the catalyst to say, this is the place. Like, this is how it's going to be. So go out, talk to a whole bunch of people, get them excited, show them something, get into the rooms, go to conferences. Like if you can find local conferences where they allow you, if you do something social, like for us, public speaking was a skill set that like the city was like, that's great. We want our citizens to have better public speaking skills. So like for them, they saw the big benefit. So they were okay with us being around in that center. All right, the one-man army standard. So we can talk a little bit about that. Effectively, the one-man army standard it's a principle that defines the terms of how you tend to run your events. And it can be compiled down into one sentence. If only one person showed up to your event, would you still run it? And the answer needs to be yes. And let me tell you a bit of a story. So when I used to run events and help others run their events on Discord, we used to run public speaking kind of practice sessions here. A lot of the times when I was teaching other people and when I first started to run themselves here, I ran into the obvious question of what if no one shows up? And for me, and the way that I taught it was that even if one person shows up, it's important that you run the event. 1 for you and 2 for the people that actually showed up here. You show them, run the entire event, back to front. Get them involved if you want to. You can run it into one-person coaching, but the whole point is that something needs to run the format. If you have a group format there, you can reduce it down, but you need to run something for the people that showed up. And the reason that you do is because if you do not, you're effectively measuring the competence of your session based on how many people show up. The value of your session is not determined by how many people show up there. The value is determined by how much value you deliver in the session in and of itself. And so for the most part, when you find running a community and running in-person communities and sessions it's a longevity game. It's not a matter of you can have a really big session and then you have a big party and you're super happy about it, and then the next week there's no one there and you get super sad. It's a surefire way to burn out because you become attached to how many people turn up to your sessions. A really good example of this is they call it the new start effect, where you start a new community and then everyone comes and supports. You have a whole bunch of people coming in at the start, it's super happy, and then after about a month, you typically get quite a big drop in attendance. And the reason is because the people that were there initially just to support you have realized that you're standing on your own 2 feet, and it's okay. That kind of runs with that. So the entire point is that the one-man army theory it's a principle that shows that no matter what, even if one person shows up, you run the event because it helps you develop consistency. And so when I think about the one-man army theory, I think about this concept of what I call 5 people in the room. If you can get 5 people in the room and one person isn't your friend, e.g. you have maybe your 3 friends that decided to come along, you've got 1 friend taking pictures and that's 4 people, and then there's 1 person. That's 5. Because if all 5 are like people that you know are like part of the team, it gets a bit shaky, but like 1 person in the room, that's not, and 5 people in the room, that's a community and that's an event. My first event that we ran, the pre-launch, before we had the big one, was 7 people. Me, a friend that was taking pictures, and 2 other organizers and 2 people. So I know the numbers on that. 7 people looked at me. They're like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm happy. More than happy. I expected 5. I got 7." And so the whole point is that 5 people in a room is enough, and you'll be fine with that. Yeah. As a quick side note here, one hack that I did is I always had my church friends kind of thing here. And so for the most part, I always knew I'd have at least 3 because I had 2 friends from the church that would show up every week, just out of obligation kind of thing, a bit of community service. And it was great. It was great to know that I always had at least 3 people showing up. But for the most part, I never have to worry about showing up to nothing. But I had hosted before, and the momentum, it takes time to build. So it will come. Just be okay with having an empty room. And if it does, be okay with hosting, because that's a reflection on you, not the other people. Yes. All right. Let's talk a little bit about consistency over perfection, actually. So, like I said before, when running a community, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. I think one of the biggest things that people can do is when they're starting a new community, they can advertise a lot and they can try to have this big show. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we call the pillar and statue theory really quickly, but there'll be an entire another lesson on this. But effectively, when you're running a community, you want to run it like a pillar. And a pillar is something that is consistent in someone's life every single week. If you think about a pillar in a building, it is something that is there, that is strong, sturdy, and keeps the infrastructure, keeps the roof up, make sure the building doesn't collapse. So a pillar may be, like we said before, church on a Sunday, board game night on a Tuesday. You want your events to feel like they are pillars. On Fridays, we do public speaking in Joensuu. That's the pillar event. Many people build statues. It's a one-off event that looks nice, is a lot of fun, people look forward to, but it's a one-off experience. Statues are really good for building ticketed events if you want to charge, but they're typically going to be a little bit higher budget, take a lot more organizing, and the format is typically a one-off. It's not repeatable, it's typically a little bit more expensive, takes a lot of advertising, takes a lot of work. Not good for pillar events. In my opinion, you should always be running, when you're looking at kind of consistency, running the lowest form that is possible. That takes very little effort, but you know the routine and you know the format and you can consistently run it. That's the best format. Because people know what to expect. They come in for a certain reason, they get the thing done, and they're super happy with it. And you can slowly grow it over time. It's effectively something that you're not going to burn out because it takes so much work and effort for you to do, but it's enough that people enjoy coming together and gather. For us, it's a 90-minute public speaking session every week. Takes an hour to plan on a Monday. We have run the sessions on a Friday. Format works brilliantly. Run it 35 sessions in the last year. So had a really good time. So for us, just don't worry about running a perfect session because for the most part, you see a lot of people, they'll kick off and they'll run some really good sessions, but then they'll burn out after session 5. So the whole point is that if you want to be around in a year's time here, it's important just to have something threshold at a low enough threshold that you can run it every week and you don't have to worry too much about it here. All right, so finding a venue. This one was tough. This one was the hardest part about cold starting a community, in my opinion. I remember when I needed to find a venue, I spent 2 months. I remember I would finish language school. At this point, I was in language school for 5 hours a day. In the mornings, I would finish school and I would walk around town and knock on doors and walk into buildings that looked like they could have some kind of space or venue to rent. We got denied by 9 different places in the city before we were able to find a venue. And so I'm going to give you the quick hack on the easiest venues to find that you can get started with here. And number 1 is always going to be the churches. Now, look, the churches are effectively community spaces here, but obviously with a caveat, if you do not want to be religiously affiliated, you can't obviously use the church, but churches have huge community spaces here. They're always happy. You don't have to be a member. You can jump in and go have a chat with a lot of the churches around. Typically, they'll give you a space, especially if you're running something that's a little bit more kind of community-based, like public speaking. It could be like a men's group, women's group, community group, sewing community, something that brings people together that's typically a little bit more good about it there. Churches are going to be fine for that. Universities are a great one. If you get a single member on your core team that's a student, you can typically get rental from a university fairly cheap, if not free. You can just always associate. You can build an association. We can talk about that at a different date. But universities will always have spaces here. Once again, caveat, if you do not want to be associated with a student university, typically speaking, if you run out of churches and or universities, you're going to be attracting those type of demographics. If you run out of a church, you'll get church people. If you run out of university, you'll get students. It comes with the territory. For us, we wanted a neutral ground, so we didn't use these ones here, and it became a little bit harder. But if you're happy with having a demographic of people that come from these spaces here, then that's fine. You can work with these here. The universities and the student unions are a great way to go about it. Libraries, probably the most stock standard. Libraries are great. They'll give you spaces here. They're typically free, if not just with library membership here. These are competitive as heck. Yes, you would be surprised how much people wish to book a library room in advance. You have clubs that will book this stuff religiously in like weeks out. Like the second it opens, they'll kind of book it every single time. And yeah, just be mindful that with libraries, it's super competitive. Typical space maxes out at like 10 people kind of thing. But if you've got a smaller group, then absolutely, that's fine here. Like for us, for our public speaking club, we can scale from 5 to 50. So we needed a bit of a bigger space here, but libraries are a great way to go about it. Community halls. Community halls are a great option as well. Typically run by not-for-profit associations. So these community halls are typically places to gather. You typically need like a kind of like, once again, a do-good kind of mentality here. You need to be doing something that's, it typically aligns with the not-for-profit or the community hall owner's kind of values. For example, if you are running a video game club, it might be like, we run sessions, but we typically cater to like young children, kids under 18, that's a niche. Like veterans or elders kind of thing, people that are older, that's a niche. So sometimes you do need to be a little bit more in alignment with what their values and or stories are. So just with community halls, go have a chat. Never know, they might let you in. If you want to say, hey, we want to do a book club specifically for young adult novel readers, great, why not? Go have a chat. Bars and venues. I know plenty of public speaking clubs, Toastmasters, for example, that run out of bars and venues. So typically, obviously, with this one here, it's an alcoholic venue, so typically people under 18 are a little bit, may or may not be allowed in, depending on, they may need a guardian. At the same time, it's typically minimum spend. So if you typically need to have a bit of a bigger group, maybe like 10, 15 plus. Last one I went to had 25 people show up. And then you try to just encourage people, maybe buy a drink. You can get something non-alcoholic, you can get a Diet Coke, that's fine. But just typically they'll give you the venue, especially if it's not a busy night, like a Monday to Wednesday evening. It's not too bad, that's okay. But if you say Friday, Saturday night, you either need some pretty special talent kind of thing here. You need to be pulling big numbers or have some kind of minimum spend or some agreement with the owners there. But bars and venues can be good. They usually have an upstairs or a downstairs kind of space, so that's optional here. And then finally, City Hall and Council. If your City Hall and Council is nice enough, they will actually have dedicated venues for you that you can just get started out with here. Typically, that's the library, but at the same time, they do sometimes have some off kind of library space around the city. They've just got empty buildings and or offices that aren't used in the evenings. Go have a chat with the City Hall and the Council, because if you tell them a little bit about your vision and your dream and what you want to do and what you want to build with the community, they could support you. When I told them that I wanted to do a public speaking community, we're doing it in English, it's really great for integration, they were super happy to help. And so I got a lot of favors with the city. Mind you, I had a lot of favors with the city as well because I went to a lot of their events. So if you go down there and you get your name known, they may be more than willing to help you in that case here. So make sure they know who you are at first. Refer back to step 1 for that. But go to these first, in my opinion. These are going to be the easiest ways for you to find like a low-hanging fruit venue around town that you can run something here. You can also run it out of co-working spaces. If you are in a co-working space, you can get a meeting room. Meeting room could typically hold 5 to 8 people, maybe 10 if it's a little bit bigger. If it's part of your membership, you can definitely do that. Or you can just strike a deal with the owner kind of thing here, do an after-work happy hour, maybe. But I would say, in my opinion, go take a look at these places here, because if not, these are typically going to be the cheapest places. If not, you have to start going to venue halls and or private bookings, which can cost a little bit of money, which is what we did at the start just to kick off, but I would recommend starting here. All right, so what your event is actually going to look like, your first event will look terrible, to be honest. The pre-launch event, I would say that I split it into 2. I teamed up with another team at the university to do a smaller event just to test the waters. So my first event, like I said, private partnership with another organization, with the university. We had 7 people turn up. It was me partnering up with another team. So I had my friend who was a photographer, 2 of the team members and me. So that's 4. So 3 people showed up. One that was a friend. So 2 people that weren't my friends or their friends or part of the teams or showed up. But we had a great time. the entire point of it was that we ran the session and we just wanted to test the format, see if it works. And it worked really well. I had a lot of fun. So honestly, for the most part, the 7 people, the messy format, it was just a test. You got to test it. You got to try it out. You can come to the community. You can have a chat with us. We can help you get it set up. We can test it on the community as well. If you join the school, and then you'll be able to test it on the community here. But they were relationships. We were able to get some initial kind of people bought in. So for the event, effectively, when you start to advertise and you have some conversations with friends, ask them to come. They say, hey, look, I'm going to do a small private event just to run it, see if you can get them down. See if your friends want to help you out by taking pictures. Taking pictures for social media is fine. Your first event is going to be a lot smaller than you think, but it'll be better. It'll be fun because it actually works. But then the big launch, the big public official launch was crazy because our first event, we sold out a room. We had, 20-something people in the room kind of thing here. Now, yeah, it was pretty fun, actually. I remember our core team, one of our first members that came on here, a good friend of mine was like, I watched you pack a room full of people and hit capacity in the first week doing public speaking in Finland. It was like watching something kind of magic. And so because of that, he joined. And yes, we're still very good friends and he's still on the core team. So yeah, just super fun first event kind of thing here. How this changes your life. Look, I'm going to be straight. Running a community, especially an in-person one where you get to meet people here, life-changing, in my opinion. Everything I have in this town is because of the community that I built, the events that I run, and everyone around it. I can walk around town these days here and people know me. I can walk in, say hi, see some nice people. Super nice. It is super nice having the feeling that kind of a lot of people know you. As you grow out and you build your communities, you're going to start getting kind of lots of testimonials from people saying, hey, I've really enjoyed this club. You've really helped me get back kind of things, whether it's confidence or socialization or skill set or something else. You'll tend to see that people will turn up and show you that they're very happy that the club has been around. And that is something that's beautiful here. And for me, it has been something where I can turn into a passion project, which I'm now turning into the Meetup Masters. I wouldn't be starting Meetup Masters if it wasn't for the fact that I built out my community and we've ran so many events. And so for me, I would say that, yeah, running a community can really change your life. It brings people together. You can create a movement, something bigger than yourself. And that moment where you realize that it's something bigger than just your idea and then other people start to run with it as well is when you really start to see that the impact you've made on the community here. And so many kind of doors locally will open for you. Yeah, definitely won't be able to walk around the city same way if you do it right and you build it. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing, to be honest. But today's action, yeah, that was a little bit of a story. That was a little bit of a story about how I cultivated my own community here. We're going to go into so much more depth on kind of advertising, building, everything else in between here. But today's lesson was just an overview story. For some action items, look, write down your honest reason. Why do you want to build a community? Honestly, before we get into kind of like picking your niche and is it profitable and how to do this, that, all those things here, write down why. Like really get clear on kind of like why you want to do this. Would you do this if you didn't get paid? Like, why are you passionate about it kind of thing here? Look, you can go for, I think, for me personally, in-person communities are a very big passion project. You can 100% go for, I'm going to do an AI meetup because AI is hot right now, and you can. There's nothing wrong with that, and people make very successful kind of things out of it here, if it's what you want to do. But typically for me, like public speaking, I'm very passionate about it. Love a stage, love giving a speech, love hosting communities and having people together. And so that's a big one. I had a big why, so write yours down. Make something tangible. Make a campfire, WhatsApp group, something of that. Answer the one-man army question. Would you still host and run if there's still one person kind of thing here? Maybe find a niche. Maybe I'll add that as an action out of here. Down here, just find a niche. Let's put that here. Find a niche. Like just you don't have to commit to it. You don't have to get married to a niche kind of thing. Just say, hey, look, I want to start a running club. I want to start a chess club, board game club, some kind of thing. Just do something and start talking to people. Because with community research, you can find 10 events, meetups, clubs, gatherings, something happening in your city the next 30 days, and just go to as many as you can. Go have some conversations and tell them about them. And then, commit to attending 3 of them. Be genuinely present. Go say hi and go meet your kind of future in-person community members. Yeah. Venue recon, you can, like we said before, you can technically go up and talk to all of these different places around the city. It's a great place if you want to get started here. I would just say before you get out there, just find a niche. We can talk about that. But look, in lesson 2, for the most part, we're going to go into, maybe we'll go into niche next section here. We'll see what I can record. But look, what's next for everything here? Meetup Masters, online school. Let me change the spelling of that one there. School community for meetup organizers. The entire point of Meetup Masters is that hosting in-person events is hard. It's not easy. Typically what happens is we have other community organizers in your community here that specifically come together. Our communities mix and match. But having a dedicated online space for community organizers where you can meet with people outside of your city is effectively what we're trying to do on school. So every week we're going to come together. We're going to talk about what our meetups were like. We can share photos from the events, talk about what went right, what went wrong, how we're trying to grow. You can meet other organizers, see how they run their formats, see what's working, see what's not. Any stage from I have an idea to I want to monetize to I want to run one-off events to I want to collaborate, anything of that nature here. The entire point is that this is a dedicated group for meetup and in-person community organizers here, that we come together to talk, learn, and build. There's going to be workshops, replays, templates, resources, artifacts, tidbits, one-on-ones, group coaching, everything in between. We're building it out, but I would really appreciate it if you join the community. I'll chuck a link somewhere here. And if you do that, you'll be able to get in at the founding level here. We'll make it super cheap and we'll work from there. But for us, Meetup Masters is a place to come if you really want to build a in-person community movement and gathering. So thank you so much for your time. My name is Heremaia, and I will see you on the inside and around the community. Thank you.